Hello and welcome to Inside Update. This is a show brought to you by InsideInvestigator.org. We're a nonprofit newsroom focusing on rooting out corruption in the state of Connecticut. My name is Connor Dragotis. I'm the managing editor here, and today I'm joined by Catherine Revelo to talk about her newest investigation. It's called Rage Bait, and also a project she could do to make Connecticut a little bit of a better place that the state government and the officials therein want to spend $300,000 to do on your dime. Catherine, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Connor. How are you?
I'm doing really well. This is kind of I think maybe the fourth time that I've asked you that. If
Yeah.
you, those watching, listening, and tuning in have kind of got in a mixed bag over the last couple months of tech issues where some of our episodes have been live streamed, some of them have been recorded and put up. Basically, it's been tech problem after tech problem. So I'm so glad to hear that you're still doing well despite all of these struggles.
Yeah, maybe I should change that answer since the last three times I've said it, it's not gone so well. But
Well, I guess, we're talking about rage bait, and I'd love it if we could just kind of talk about the history. I think the marketing efforts of Connecticut state government officials are something that we've paid attention to kind of as they have unfolded over the last couple of years. It's something internally we have had a couple good laughs about, some definite eye rolling. But according to the government officials in the marketing departments here, things are going great, right?
yeah, right. Pizza is apparently a very controversial topic, and one that has generated quite a bit of revenue for the state in response to their latest marketing campaign. And well, as you said, we've talked about that, and I'm sure everyone's seen the headlines because it has been all over the media with um the signs, the websites, the text messaging services that the Connecticut Office of Statewide Marketing and Tourism set up to really kind of go after other states and basically say Connecticut pizza is superior to New York City, Detroit, New Jersey, all these areas that are known for their pizza culture. And, one of the things that we learned through the FOIA request that we submitted was that the title of this campaign was called Rage Bait. It was a shift in the Office of Tourism's marketing strategy towards earned media, and it was designed basically to piss people off and to generate attention that way. And according to the state and to, all of the media stories that then ran with this, it worked. It had an $11 to $1 return on investment. And, you know, we saw that claim repeated over and over again, but what we haven't seen is kind of a more in-depth look at sourcing to back that up or, more behind the scenes details of what this campaign entailed. And that's what we wanted to take a look at with this investigation.
So you tackled this, perhaps not surprisingly, via FOIA, right? You wanted to unpack all of the internal communications, obviously information on what it cost taxpayers, kind of these behind the scenes details. And you're right, there have been a lot of headlines, kind of, with that cheesy, odd looking mascot hanging around. Everyone's been jumping on, again, these kind of 11 to 1 numbers. But what stood out to you as surprising? I guess, as you took a look at all these records. And could you also give us an idea how many records are we talking about? It was a big scope that you asked for.
Yeah, right, right. We filed a series of requests, not just about Rage Bay. And, the FOI that I wrote about Charlie, the state pizza mascot, was perhaps the weirdest FOI I've ever written, and I've written a lot of them. But so this covered not only Rage Bait, which was the pizza campaign and the broader campaign around that, um, but also, I think the first indication that this kind of shift in marketing was coming was the signs that the state put up at the state border that again were in that rage bait vein that took aim at, like Massachusetts is the basketball capital of the world because they have the Basketball Hall of Fame there. Um, and so we did get quite a lot of records back between we submitted campaigns for the signs, for Rage Bait, for the new content creator collaboration website that the state has set up. So, 5 or 6 different projects. And I think perhaps the most surprising thing that we learned was just about what the cost of those signs that went up was. It was 4 different signs that went up around the state border. And by far, the signs themselves weren't necessarily that expensive, although there was a couple $1 million price tag on the whole project. But the majority cost of that was actually, security related to people being out in the roadway um, doing the work to get those up.
So that's an interesting element of this, and the infrastructure around marketing. I mean, I don't know. To a certain extent, we have to be involved in marketing, right? As a relatively new, I mean, we're celebrating our fourth birthday on Monday, which is exciting, but we do still consider ourselves the new kids on the block. So, that marketing element and getting our name out there is really important. And I was somewhat astounded by the numbers that they have to invest into this department generally. They put a lot in there. Could you help us understand a little bit, like what is the goal of the marketing campaign, right? I mean, obviously it's exposure, it's there, but like at the end of the day, exposure doesn't mean anything. There has to be a further step that they want people to take. What does that look like? And again, measurable, incremental tourism, like I guess it still feels soft as a target to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's right. We live in New England. I think tourism marketing is a big thing where, obviously the goal is to position the state in a way that makes people want to come here, vacation here, spend money here, particularly things like hospitality and entertainment and food and drink. Um, and that really, I think, is, this kind of started out with one of the things we talk about in the article is right, Connecticut recently changed its kind of statewide marketing slogan to the Make It Here campaign. And before that, but they'd been through a lot of different slogans within, a couple of decades where it was just this constant turmoil. It wasn't working. Polling kind of indicated that people really didn't think that highly of Connecticut. It was more a drive-through state between New York and, I guess Boston or the Cape or wherever else you would go to vacation. Um, and people weren't stopping here, didn't necessarily have a positive image of Connecticut. So, the whole point of this was to convince people that, hey, Connecticut's a place you should stay. It's a place you should go on vacation. It's a place you should come to live and work, all that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. Driving through Connecticut, it's probably the roads that make people not want to be here, right? Once you get into any town, it's an absolutely
Yeah,
fantastically
it is
beautiful
a
place.
very long drive across the state on I-95, though,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially
God
with
forbid you're
Connecticut
going all the
drivers.
way up to Maine. That goes from a, 3 hour trip to a 6 hour trip really, really
Yeah.
quickly. So there's obviously this secondary layer here too, where we're talking about money in the legislature, right? So there has been an effort to increase spending. I guess could you talk a little bit about why that is is the expectation that they should be make a dollar stretch further, or are there specific things that they want to tackle? I guess talk to me a little bit about why the legislature is somewhat in another kerfuffle about this kind of spending.
Yeah, right. Well, Connecticut's marketing budget isn't actually that big, especially compared to some of the other states in the region, which is why, I think a lot of legislators want to increase spending to drive more revenue into the state. And we do go into this in the investigation where it got a boost in recent years when federal money was pouring into states as a result of COVID. But now that's all gone. And so now that states actually have to pay for things themselves, that level of funding has decreased. And so there is this push by legislators, and it's a bipartisan effort, and it's been going on for a couple of years now to increase the state's marketing budget, to increase tourism funding, to drive more revenue into the state. Um, and, a lot of the proposals are looking at the state's meals tax, which right now goes straight into the general fund. And these would largely split revenue between the tourism fund and municipalities where meals are purchased, which of course would be a revenue loss for for the general fund. So it seems like it's probably not likely to pass, especially given we have a general fund deficit now, and given the Appropriations Committee has advanced a budget that is above the baseline that Lamont proposed. But
Well,
I
I
think,
think
also part of it is, areas like Mystic, which is, a lovely area to spend time in, love it down there, get a lot of attention in the marketing budget. But, there are other parts of the state that I think legislators want to promote too, and especially getting money into the municipalities in their constituencies.
do you know if municipalities spend much money on those kind of like how is that broken up? Is there partnership with the state at all to attract folks to those, let's say, lesser trodden areas?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, I know you see like every year there's usually a bill to fund the Chamber of Commerce around the Mystic area. So those areas certainly do get that kind of attention. I don't think other areas do. Obviously with the pizza push, New Haven has become an area of focus because that's, where the kind of pizza culture, if you want to call it that, um, is located. But, kind of beyond that, I think that's what is behind this push to increase the tourism marketing fund.
Okay. Folks, again, this is called Rage Bait. It's a close look at the costs and benefits of Connecticut's marketing ploy, where they basically intentionally went out, poked the bear, see if you can get folks across the country angry at Connecticut, and they've claimed that this has translated into a huge benefit for the state. Catherine has a ton of details in there. Obviously, we're just taking a few brief minutes to talk about, the 30,000-foot level. If you want to see their forays into AI, some of the conversations that they had via email as they developed this strategy and also as they chatted about it after it started to roll out. One of the things that I love that we always try to do, but Catherine really featured it prominently here, is right in the first section, there's a link to just go view all of the documentation that we have. We have a fairly extensive FOIA library that continues to grow by the day, where we just make all of the things that we access document-wise from the government, we make them available to you. So just part of our commitment on transparency. And I'd love to talk about another way that we could be helping with transparency. Could you, I guess, before we talk about your transparency update article here, can you talk about what was proposed with this $300,000 price tag?
Yeah, right. So this is a bill that has appeared in the last couple of sessions, and in general, it's a good bill, right? It's a proposal to study state agency response times to FOIA requests, which is something that we do need to know because right now we know FOIA takes forever, right? That's our personal experience. That's lots of people's personal experience. You go to the FOIC, and that's clearly an issue. Um, but the extent of what the issue is was why are these requests taking so long? Is it particular types of requests? Is it particular agencies and their FOI policies? Um, that we don't know. So this bill would require this to be studied and would primarily look at FOIC cases and decisions where one of the main issues is people waiting a long time for records, and that's where the price tag comes in, is it has a fiscal note of up to $300,000, depending on how many cases they review. Basically to take a look at those cases, which I will know are already public records and are already available on the FYC's website.
Well, I think that starts to cut to the heart of this thing, right? Because you have had all of these problems in getting records across the board. We all have. It's something that reporters are dealing with every single day in Connecticut. And I don't mean just at Inside Investigator. We see this every time that we talk to another newsroom. It is a common topic of conversation, wishing that we could get information faster. But you, because of your focus on transparency, went above and beyond. You have already started to look at this problem. And as I understand it, you've just run into the very wall that you're trying to knock down. Tell us about that process a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, this is a bill that comes up every year again, and I think we all know it's not going to pass. Unfortunately. So, we kind of took that upon ourselves to say this is something that's doable, and we can, kind of audit this information by looking at the number of requests that executive branch agencies receive every year and the amount of time that they've been open and the records requested and kind of get a better idea of what's going on here. So that's what I did. I filed identical FOIA requests with every single individual executive branch agency to try to find out information for 2025 about, the number of requests they receive and how long they've been pending and how long they were open. And, right away we ran into an issue that highlights why this is already a problem where, we filed those requests back in January. It is now April and I don't have over half of them back. And I mean, these are kind of the definition of a simple request under FOIA, which is a request that doesn't require an agency to search for a lot of records, doesn't require a lot of review or redaction. In most cases, what we're asking for is the GovQA log from these agencies, which most executive branch agencies use. So they already have all of this information contained in a program and they need to download it and send it to us. Shouldn't take that much. There are some cases where there are redactions necessary because, like the Department of Banking, for example, is dealing with cases that might be related to that, which is fine. Redacting that information, no problem. But again, it should not take this long to get these records requests back to us.
So we're back to the black box. There's a problem. We want to understand the problem. We can't get the information to understand the problem.
Yeah,
The very people that we want to understand so we can hopefully lead to a better result for, frankly, every single person involved.
yeah,
Is
exactly.
it
Right. And one of
harder?
the issues that I've already seen with the responses that we do have back is we've heard back from agencies, well, we don't have a comprehensive way to track these requests. If they come in through GovQA, we can give you certain records, but if they come in via email or something else, then we don't have a record. Or they've provided us tracking logs that don't list, the date received and the date it was closed or things like that. Whereas just, and this is one of the things that I happen to think is one of the biggest issues with FOI in Connecticut is there is no consistency agency to agency between how these requests are handled. And, looking at this data, the question that you just kind of can't help asking yourself as a requester is if you're unable to track these things across multiple agencies, just at the basic level of, okay, what have we received? What do we have to do? Because we are obligated under the law to respond to these and respond to these quickly. If you can't handle that, then what confidence is the public supposed to have that when it comes to actually turning over responsive documents, that that is being handled correctly?
And well, frankly, we know that it's not. I mean, how many times have we gotten records back? Obviously, the most outrageous of them being the Yukon and CSCU sexual misconduct records. Congratulations to Catherine, by the way. She just won a second award for that piece, which is fantastic from the Connecticut Press Club. But we know that the records are incomplete. We know that the people who are doing this are not following through on their basic responsibilities. So it gets that much more frustrating, especially, I think, as an organization that's dedicated to rooting out corruption. It's not like we are just uh, poking the bear, doing our own rage bait campaign internally to irritate people. We're looking into some very serious accusations that, in many cases, have been found to be absolutely true. So to not have those records come out, I mean, it's really between a rock and a hard place for people who want to do the right thing or those who just want to help protect their friends and neighbors. I think that's a huge part of this is transparency can literally help folks live a better life. And if you're not doing that, come on, guys, what are these FOIA officials doing?
Right. Well, and I'd like, and we've heard this from other people we've talked to who are in the members of the public who are frustrated because they don't necessarily have the resources that we do to deal with this stuff. And I think it's a really good point, and it's important to remember FOIA is the law. It might not be, as serious a law as some of the other stuff that's going on right now, but it is a law. And when agencies don't comply with it or uphold their obligations, they are breaking the law. And that's a problem.
Is the only way to deal with that particular element of it, I guess the FOIC? I mean, I know that you could go through the FOIC and then take it further, but at some point where we get bogged down in this idea of holding an agency accountable instead of holding an individual accountable. And I know I harp on that frequently because an agency can't act, only an individual person can act. So how do we actually get at that level of accountability? I know obviously we can draw attention to it, but what does the process look like in the FOIC or the courts? How do we get anywhere with that?
Yeah, I mean, Connecticut is lucky in that we have the FOIC, which prevents people from having to go to the course. So, immediately when we are dealing with an agency that is not complying with the law, you have an option that is cheaper, that is faster than going through the courts. And the FOIC is, of course, not perfect, and that is still, it's a year-long process most of the time. So that is frustrating. And I know a lot of people have frustrations with the limits of their scope, which, like, yes, those limits are real, but I do think the FOIC does a good job enforcing them. Um, so that right now I think is the best available process. We as journalists are lucky that we have a platform, and that is why Transparency Update exists because, Connor, I know how many conversations have we had where we've written a transparency update complaining about records that are outstanding, or I've written an investigation complaining about a request that's outstanding, and within a week we have those back. And again, that is something that it really gets under my skin because I know that the majority of people who are filing FOIA requests in this day and age are not journalists. They are not people with a platform. They are everyday citizens who want to know more about what's going on in their government, and they just don't have the resources to deal with this type of thing. Um, so, I think the FOIC is not always the right answer, but it is a better answer than going through the courts. Beyond that, it is going out and doing things like writing letters to the editor of a newspaper, starting a Facebook group, send us a tip and let us know so that we can publicize what's going on, or try to help you. But, outside of that, I don't know that I have a one size fits all. This is the best answer to immediately fix this because, clearly it's a culture problem in government.
Well, that's such an interesting point too, that, when we put pressure on folks, how quickly problems get resolved. And, I want to encourage anyone out there who is going through something. That's one of the reasons we exist, whether it's a transparency issue where Catherine is the right person to talk to, or, Brandon, Alex, and Mark can all help. They all have their own passions as reporters that they're uniquely situated to help you out with. But the worst thing that you could do is just kind of hunker down and hope that they're going to do the right thing, or stay silent because of fear of retribution. I know that's another common one, and I really was so thankful. We had a conversation just the other day where a situation came up, and one of our reporters told the source, "We're going to raise hell if you get retaliated against." And that is so important to, I think, all good journalism, but it's something I'm particularly proud of this team, because that wasn't me as the managing editor saying, this is the way we're going to do business. It was our reporter team saying, we are going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And that is what makes Inside Investigator unique. But it's also, I think, what makes you guys as reporters such a valuable team. And frankly, one of the reasons why you're winning so many awards, why you're having such great impact, is because this is meaningful work that is able to make a difference. So, I'll quit my praise there, but everyone should be reading Transparency Update, which is Catherine's every other week. Let's call it a column, but it's basically a peek behind the scenes at what she is seeing and experiencing when it comes to FOIA, when it comes to transparency. The article we've been talking about is headlined $300,000 to study FOIA wait times. We could do it for free. So I think that cuts to the heart of it as well. Catherine, rage bait, this article, other things going on. What else do you want people to know about your work right now?
No, I think, right, the next investigation that I'm working on is related to this issue that we've been talking about with transparency when it comes to sexual misconduct at the CSTU system and UConn. We alluded a little bit to some of the issues with it. But, a major part of that, again, is FOIA requests. And I think between the two of us, we've submitted 5 different requests over the last 4 years for documents. Um, you won 2 FOIC cases against CSCU and UConn to compel them to turn over records. But, we've had across those 5 cases, and granted, some of them have had different timeframes on them, so we expected the cases themselves to be different. But, the records that we received in terms of, we got the investigation report versus, communications and disciplinary reports have been different across all five of those requests, which is one of the issues I will be getting into because it of course not only cuts to issues with how FOIA is upheld in the state, but also even things like, we've been trying to track what is the cost of this when you have
Yes.
a faculty member who is found to have violated a code of conduct because they have, um, you know, misbehaved in some way. There's a cost to taxpayers there because this is a um, a public university. And even just the additional discovery of those documents has enabled us to get a more complete picture of what taxpayers are paying there. And the numbers have kind of ballooned in just, the course of what 18 months will be between these two investigations.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real world example of not just me kind of more abstractly complaining about FOIA and transparency, but like in terms of our ability to do our job as journalists, these things do matter and do impact what we know and what we can tell the public.
I love that. Thank you, truly, for saying that. Yeah, transparency is upstream of corruption. It's one of the reasons that we tackle it so seriously, is because we are trying to knock down that dam, let loose the floodwaters of all this information that makes accountability possible, right? So many things are locked behind closed doors. And frankly, we will also be happy to talk to heroes, whistleblowers, folks who want to speak up about what they have experienced, what they've seen. So many of our amazing tips that turn into powerful investigations that change things, they're not just coming from nowhere. They're coming from real people who know what they're talking about. So I'd like to encourage anyone watching, listening, or tuning in, be a hero. Do something that matters. Help your friends, help your family, help your loved ones, help your community, help your state. Speak up. If it's us, fantastic. There are a lot of good journalists out there. I think we have the best. I'm obviously biased about that because I think we're uniquely situated to tell in-depth stories in a way that no one else is in the state of Connecticut. We want to be partners on bringing that good into reality. Catherine, thank you for all your work on transparency. Thank you for all your work on the First Amendment and just making this state a better place to live and thrive, frankly. To everyone tuning in, thank you for listening. Thank you for reading. Thank you for watching. And a special thank you to our donors who make all of this possible. We're a nonprofit newsroom, as I mentioned at the top, and that means that we are 100% supported by voluntary donations of people who believe in our mission. If you'd like to join that elite group of people who make this work possible, head over to insideinvestigator.org, hit the donate button. It's bright pink and it's in the top right-hand corner of the website, and we would be honored to receive your support. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and until then, folks, please don't be corrupt.